What if I told you that uh, it is entirely possible to secure like $250,000 in business funding without ever showing a bank your tax returns
Right.
or handing over a business plan or honestly even paying a single cent of interest for the first 18 months?
It sounds totally made up.
It really does.
Oh,
But welcome to the deep dive. Today we are mapping out what has rapidly become, well, the absolute wild west of the 2026 credit stacking industry.
and it really is the Wild West right now.
It is. And we're doing this just for you, the listener, to help you separate the genuine strategists,
Yeah.
the ones who can actually help you build massive financial leverage, from the overpriced gurus who are just trying to drain your wallet.
Right, because the sheer volume of noise in this space right now is just staggering. I mean, we are seeing thousands of creators promising unlimited capital.
Thousands.
Yeah, and trying to navigate those claims without, a technical understanding of how financial algorithms actually work. That is incredibly dangerous.
Which is exactly why our source material today is so critical. We have a comprehensive, completely impartial 2026 industry guide written by Troy Johnston.
Yeah, the Stack Easy founder.
Exactly. He's the founder of StackEasy.ai. And Troy's perspective is uniquely valuable here because of his incentive structure.
Yeah,
Like, he is not selling you a masterclass.
right. He's not an influencer.
No, he doesn't offer a $5,000 coaching program. He builds tracking software. So because he has no horse in the coaching race, his guide evaluates 5 distinct tiers of credit stacking programs, from free YouTube channels all the way up to high-ticket concierge services.
And he judges them strictly on their mechanical effectiveness, which is so rare.
Totally rare.
That objective lens is vital because most of the program comparisons you find online, they're heavily skewed by affiliate commissions.
Oh, absolutely.
The authors are financially motivated to push you toward whichever expensive course, pays them the highest kickback. But Troy's guide just strips away the marketing.
It focuses purely on the underlying financial mechanics. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because if you have spent any time in personal finance circles, you already know about credit card churning.
Right, the rewards game.
Yeah, you open a card, you spend enough to get the airline miles or the hotel points, and then you just move on. But stacking is not churning.
Not at all.
And we need to draw a very hard line here between, like, chasing a free luxury vacation and engineering a pool of commercial leverage. I mean, it's like aggressively clipping coupons to get a free flight versus convincing the bank to give you an interest-free loan to build your own runway.
That is a great way to put it, because churning is essentially a consumer rewards game, but credit stacking is a pure capital acquisition strategy.
Oh, right.
You are completely ignoring the points. Instead, you are systematically acquiring business credit cards that offer 0% APR introductory periods.
Just focusing on the 0%.
Exactly. And you synchronize these approvals to create a massive consolidated pool of interest-free capital, which you then deploy to scale a startup or fund real estate acquisitions or even just float operational cash flow.
Okay, but I have to push back on the framing here just a little bit.
Sure.
When we talk about systematically accumulating $50,000 or $100,000 in unsecured credit cards to fund, like, speculative investments, isn't this just a highly sophisticated get-rich-quick scheme?
Whoa.
I mean, you are essentially piling up massive debt and just hoping your business idea pays off before the promotional window closes, right?
It's a fair point, and the risk profile is undeniably high. In fact, Troy's guide opens with a massive warning label for that exact reason.
I noticed that.
Yeah, if you approach this like a get-rich-quick scheme, you will financially ruin yourself, period.
Yeah, it's not a toy.
No, stacking requires a level of structural discipline that most people simply do not possess. However, what's fascinating here is the data coming out of the mid-tier educational programs Troy analyzed.
The ones in the, like, $800 to $1,200 range.
Exactly. Students in those programs who are actively applying for multiple lines of credit are actually seeing their personal credit scores increase.
Wait, increase?
Yes, by 40 to 65 points within their first 90 days.
Okay, you're going to have to explain the math on that. Because how does actively taking on tens of thousands of dollars in new potential debt trigger a credit score increase? That feels like a glitch in the matrix.
It really does sound like one, but it's not a glitch. It is a deliberate manipulation of the FICO algorithm's credit utilization ratio.
Ah, utilization.
Right. Your score is heavily weighted by how much credit you are using versus how much you have available. So when you successfully stack 3 new cards, you might instantly add, say, $60,000 to your total available credit pool.
Oh, wow.
And even if you carry a small balance on an older card, your overall utilization percentage plummets overnight.
Because the denominator got so much bigger.
Exactly. You are diluting your debt-to-limit ratio faster than the algorithm registers the new accounts.
So you're basically expanding the denominator of your credit equation to trick the algorithm into viewing you as hyper-responsible.
That's exactly what's happening.
Wow. But, if the underlying math is that predictable, it begs the question of why anyone would pay a premium to have someone else do it. Which brings us to the first category in Troy's guide.
The high-ticket heavyweights.
Right. The do-it-for-me agencies. And the most established player here is Fund and Grow. They charge either $3,997 for a 12-month membership, or they take an 8% performance fee on the total capital they secure for you.
And they don't take just anyone either.
No, they don't.
Fund and Grow's algorithmic strategy requires you to bring a solid foundation to the table. You need a minimum 680 credit score and between $10,000 and $20,000 in existing seasoned credit card limits.
Because credit begets credit.
Exactly. The banks want to see that another institution has already trusted you with a substantial limit before they match it. But if you meet those prerequisites, they claim to secure up to $250,000 in 0% business credit.
Which is huge. But the reviews in the source material for Fund and Grow are wildly polarized.
Oh, very polarized.
You have verified users boasting about securing 60 grand in funding in just a few weeks. But then you have this very famous Reddit thread where a user just completely dissects the service, calling the entire operation, quote, smoke, mirrors, bullshit, and fraud.
Yeah, that thread is brutal.
It is. Now, they do offer a 60-day money-back guarantee, but still, $4 grand is a massive upfront hurdle for anybody.
It is.
The guide also mentions Cameron Gade of Go Credit Pros. He runs a veteran-owned company operating entirely on that performance-based model. And his Trustpilot data shows clients reliably securing between $85,000 and $175,000.
With really good customer service, too, like taking calls from a daughter's soccer game.
Right. Highly personalized.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to ask, if the underlying information is basically just about applying for credit cards, why on earth would someone hand over 8% of their funding or $4 grand up front? Are they just paying a laziness tax?
Well, to understand the value proposition here, you have to look at the back-end mechanics. It's not a laziness tax. It is not just filling out applications.
Okay, what are they actually doing then?
These agencies execute something called batching. When you apply for a credit card, it takes up to 48 hours for that hard inquiry to populate across all the credit bureaus.
Oh, right, the latency.
Exactly. Agencies submit multiple, highly targeted applications simultaneously within a very tight window.
So they are essentially exploiting the latency in the banking system. The second bank approves you because they literally cannot see the inquiry from the first bank yet.
Precisely. Furthermore, they have dedicated teams spending hours on the phone with banking reconsideration lines.
Wait, what are those?
So if an algorithm denies your application, these agencies call the human underwriters directly. They negotiate an approval using established banking relationships.
Ah, okay. So when you look at that 8% fee or that $4,000 price tag, you really aren't paying a laziness tax.
No, you're buying back time.
You're buying back the dozens of hours you would otherwise spend mapping out application sequences, studying bureau latency, and arguing with underwriters on a Tuesday afternoon.
Right. For a busy founder trying to build a company, outsourcing that friction makes perfect mathematical sense.
It does. But for the listener who simply refuses to hand over that kind of capital up front, Troy's guide moves into the monthly subscription models, what he calls the murky middle.
The course creators and school communities.
Yeah. And this sector is experiencing explosive growth right now. We are looking at low-barrier monthly subscriptions that provide communal learning environments.
The prime example in the guide is Creditpreneur.
Right, which is just $27 a month on school.
Yeah, and they teach a methodical triple threat approach. They systematically sequence personal credit repair, then business credit foundation, and finally, funding extraction.
And at $27, it's highly accessible. I mean, it's like a gym membership where you thrive on group accountability.
Yeah.
The guide also highlights creators like Nam Nguyen, who focuses heavily on the grueling mechanics of credit repair.
Removing derogatory marks. Yeah.
Right, which is best if you have damaged credit. And then Cal Barton, who specializes in the funding game and aggressively growing existing business credit limits.
But we should note, this mid-tier space is also where the most aggressive, unverified claims live.
Oh, for sure. The guide uses David Ramirez and his Tradeline Secrets community as a major cautionary tale.
Yeah, that's a wild one.
Ramirez publicly claims to have secured $1 million in business funding without ever submitting tax returns.
Claims of that magnitude in the trade line space require intense scrutiny.
Let's explain trade lines really quick for the listener.
Sure. For context, a trade line strategy involves paying a broker to have yourself added as an authorized user on a stranger's old high-limit credit card.
A total stranger's card.
Yes. You don't get a physical card, but the FICO algorithm suddenly injects that stranger's 15 years of perfect payment history directly onto your credit profile.
Wow. It's like a synthetic history injection. You are literally renting someone else's financial reputation to artificially inflate your perceived trustworthiness to the algorithm,
Exactly.
but claiming $1 million in funding purely from that maneuver, while skipping income verification entirely.
It's a huge red flag.
Yeah, and the Better Business Bureau has active complaints about Ramirez. They note his paid advice on removing hard inquiries directly contradicts the methods he advertises on his public YouTube channel.
This raises an important question about due diligence, The mechanics of algorithmic manipulation are real, but the execution is incredibly nuanced.
Yeah.
When you are operating in a space where the entire goal is to outsmart banking algorithms, the line between aggressive strategy and outright fraud can get very blurry very fast.
It's the difference between the $27 gym membership and buying a shady supplement in the locker room.
That's exactly it.
Creditpreneur's model is the gym membership. You pay a small fee, you access the equipment, you are surrounded by other people doing the heavy lifting, and the community holds you accountable.
Right.
Ramirez's $1 million trade line claim is the guy in the locker room whispering that his unmarked bottle of pills will make you look like a bodybuilder by Friday.
You want the structural accountability, not the magic pill.
Exactly. So, which brings us to the ultimate question for the highly motivated, intensely organized listener. Can you just bypass the agencies and the communities entirely and learn the exact same algorithmic mechanics for free?
The answer to that is an unequivocal yes.
Really?
Yes. Troy Johnston's guide actually points to the free education tier as the absolute best starting point.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The guide points to 3 massive YouTube channels. You have Proud Money, run by Adam Jusko, who is universally described across Reddit as clear, clean, and solid with zero hype.
That's great.
Then you have Ask Sebi, run by Sebastian Fung, who is incredibly analytical and publicly audits his own massive portfolio of open cards, which is perfect if you're a travel hacker.
Yeah, he walks the walk.
He really does. And then you have Mark Reese, who has been delivering highly technical visual PowerPoint presentations on this stuff since, like, 2013.
He was featured on CNET, too.
Right. But let me push back on the business model here. If guys like Adam and Sebi are giving away the farm for free, if they're handing out the exact same batching strategies that Fund and Grow charges $4,000 for, what is the catch?
Wow.
Why do the paid programs even exist if these massive channels give the blueprint away for nothing?
The catch is found entirely in how their incentives are aligned. These free creators monetize their audience through YouTube ad revenue and affiliate commissions.
The link's in the description.
Exactly. When they teach you the exact mechanics of how a specific business card works, they want you to click their specific affiliate link to apply.
So they get a cut from the bank.
Right. Their revenue is generated by the bank, not by you. Therefore, they have absolutely zero incentive to hide the real strategies behind a paywall.
That makes perfect sense.
They win when you successfully secure the card using their link.
So the information is pristine, but the structural safety net is non-existent. You have the raw data, but if you miscalculate the bureau latency and get hit with a denial, you don't have a concierge to call the reconsideration line for you.
Exactly. You are completely on your own.
You're on an island. Okay, let's say you take that route. You watch the free content, you build your own map, and you start applying. The source material highlights a critical mechanical pro tip for the actual execution phase.
The isolation strategy.
Right. It says you must start with 2 to 3 cards from entirely different issuers. Why is that?
This goes back to understanding how the credit bureaus communicate. There are 3 major bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion.
Right.
Different banks pull data from different bureaus depending on your geographic location.
So if you apply for 3 cards from, say, Chase, Capital One, and Amex, and they all happen to pull from Experian.
Your Experian score takes 3 immediate hits, and the third bank automatically denies you.
But if you know that Chase pulls Experian, Barclays pulls TransUnion, and U.S. Bank pulls Equifax, you can secure 3 massive credit lines on the exact same day. and each bureau only registers a single inquiry.
That is the exact mathematical isolation strategy you need to minimize score impact while maximizing total available credit.
That is brilliant.
It is. However, once you successfully execute that maneuver and secure the capital, you instantly step into the most dangerous phase of the entire process.
The danger of the stack.
Managing the chaos of the growing stack.
Managing a massive stack of these cards is not just juggling chainsaws, it's doing it blindfolded while standing on a trapdoor.
It really is.
I mean, you're suddenly balancing a dozen different billing cycles. But the real danger is the 0% APR expiration windows.
Right, because these promotional periods are not synchronized at all.
No, one card expires in 12 months, another in 15, another in 18.
And if you miscalculate a single expiration date and leave a balance on the card when the window closes, the financial penalty is brutal.
How brutal.
Well, many of these commercial cards don't just start charging interest moving forward. They hit you with retroactive interest.
Wait, really?
Yes, applying a 25% APR to your entire balance going all the way back to day one of the promotion.
Oh, wow. One slip up and you're paying 25% interest on $50,000.
Exactly. A single missed date on a messy Excel spreadsheet can trigger a $10,000 interest charge overnight.
That is terrifying. But that retroactive trapdoor is exactly why Troy Johnston built StackEasy, right?
Yes. He recognized that trying to manage a synchronized multi-card sequence using a manual spreadsheet was basically a statistical guarantee of failure.
Humans make mistakes.
Always. So the software directly monitors the utilization APIs and maps out the exact expiration dates so you don't trigger a catastrophic interest event.
The guide also mentions pairing this with a platform like Dovely to constantly monitor the underlying health of the credit profile itself.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it exposes the fundamental duality of financial leverage.
How so?
Well, successfully tricking an algorithm into giving you $50,000 is exhilarating. It feels like a massive victory.
Getting the capital is the fun part.
Right. But getting the capital is only step one. Cash flow management, automated tracking, and disciplined debt deployment. That is what actually separates the successful entrepreneurs who build empires from the people who just spiral into unrecoverable consumer debt.
Execution is the only thing that matters.
The only thing.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means the playbook is entirely public. Whether you choose to invest your time meticulously studying the free mechanics on a channel like Proud Money, or, you decide to pay $27 for the structural accountability of the creditpreneur community, or you value your time enough to hand a performance fee over to Go Credit Pros. The knowledge and the capital are out there.
It's all accessible.
Exactly. The true differentiator is not the program you choose. It is your own administrative discipline and your respect for the sheer volatility of the debt you are acquiring.
Before we wrap up, there is one final underlying implication in Troy's guide that I think demands attention.
Oh, what's that?
The guide notes that credit stacking has exploded specifically because traditional regulated business loans have become too difficult for everyday entrepreneurs to secure.
Right. The banks tightened the gates, so the founders found a side door.
But look at the macroeconomics of that side door. These 0% APR consumer and small business credit cards are explicitly designed by banks as loss leaders.
Because they expect people to mess up.
Exactly. The bank absorbs the upfront cost of the 0% period, assuming the average consumer will eventually slip up, carry a balance, and pay exorbitant long-term interest.
But right now,
an entire generation of highly educated entrepreneurs is using software and algorithms to systematically extract that interest-free capital to fund commercial real estate and tech startups with every intention of paying it off right before the trapdoor opens.
they are literally turning the bank's consumer trap into massive commercial leverage.
Which forces us to ask, how long until the major credit card issuers realize the scale at which their loss leaders are being exploited? When the algorithmic risk models finally catch up to the reality of the stacking industry, will the banks permanently close this loophole? We may very well be living in the fleeting golden age of alternative credit leverage, and the window of opportunity could be actively closing.
That is a brilliant and honestly slightly terrifying reality check. If the banks are destined to patch the algorithm, the time to study these mechanics is right now. We highly encourage you to dig into the sources, explore the free educational channels, and fiercely guard your financial discipline. Stay deeply curious about the hidden mechanics of the systems operating all around you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.